This is the Bible of the electrogenic cell. It's not just the best book ever written on the subject, it's the only book ever written on this subject. Brought to you by supporters of Christ. Melanin versus diabetes, we in here. We discovered it. In the beginning was the wave. The wave was with God, and the wave was God.
In the beginning was the wave was God, the wave was God, the wave was hard. Every step a symphony, timelines infinity. The wave erased injury, I'm the divine epiphany. We made history, articulated mystery. The wave is a remedy. God kissed me, listen, we made history. Flawless victory, they dissing me in misery. In misery, it don't get to me, but we made history. I gotta live it, my juices efficiently, bro, we made history. Magician tweet, we made history. Rewriting industry, ain't no quitting me, bro, we made history. Articulating mystery, clarify the vision, we dancing in victory. We made history, in heaven walk with me, in the waves swim with me. In the beginning was the wave was a God, the wave was God, the wave was hard. Every step a symphony, timelines infinity. The wave erased injury, I'm the divine epiphany. We made history, articulated mystery. The wave is a remedy. God kissing me, listen, we made history. Flawless victory, they dissing me in misery. Man, I made history, it don't get to me, bro, we made history. I gotta live this, my jewels used efficiently. Bro, we made history. We made history, rewriting industry, ain't no quitting me, bro, we made history. Articulating mystery, clarify the vision, we dancing in victory. We made history, in heaven walk with me, in the waves swim with me. In the beginning was the wave was God, the wave was God, the wave was hard. Every step a symphony, timelines infinity. The wave erased injury, I'm the divine epiphany. We made history, articulating mystery. The wave is a remedy. God kissing me, listen, we made history. Flawless victory, they dissing me in misery. Mad, I made history, it don't get to me, bro, we made history. I gotta live this, my jewels used efficiently. Bro, we made history. We made history, rewriting industry, ain't no quitting me, bro, we made history. Articulating mystery, clarify the vision, we dancing in victory. We made history, in heaven walk with me, in the waves swim with me. In the beginning was the wave was God, the wave was God, the wave was hard. Every step a symphony, timelines infinity. The wave erased injury, I'm the divine epiphany. We made history, articulating mystery. The wave is the remedy. God kissing me, listen, we made history. Flawless victory, they dissing me in misery. Man, I made history, it don't get to me, bro, we made history. I gotta live this, my juice used efficiently. Bro, we made history. We made history, rewriting industry, ain't no quitting me. Bro, we made history, articulating mystery. Clarify the vision, we dancing in victory. We made history, in heaven walk with me, in the waves swim with me. In the beginning was the wave God, the wave was God, the wave was hard. Every step a symphony, timelines infinity. The wave erased injury, I'm the divine epiphany. We made history, articulating mystery. The wave is a remedy. God kissing me, listen, we made history. Flawless victory, they dissing me in misery. Man, I made history, it don't get to me, bro, we made history. I gotta live this, my jewels used efficiently. Bro, we made history. We made history, rewriting industry, ain't no quitting me, bro, we made history. Articulating mystery, clarify the vision, we dancing in victory. Bro, we made history, in heaven walk with me, in the waves swim with me. Frontline God infantry, the wave is the ministry. Surfboard wizardry, frozen water liberty, truth defying imagery, geometric symmetry, standing wave mimicry. The wave is the energy, the trickery is slippery. The slippery was meant to be. Now I gotta hit the street. Thank God for picking me to release the quickening. I made history, is sickening. Me and God be whispering, then I brought the living spring. Bro, we made history, shining, glistening, emphatic christening. I found a missing link. Everybody get in sync. Superstition is extinct. Peer review what you think. Look how the haters link. Don't forget the kitchen sink. The way glistening, the way christening, the way the missing link. Way of getting synced. Superstition is extinct. Peer review what you think. Look how the haters link. Don't forget the kitchen sink. The way glistening, the way christening, the way the missing link. Way of getting synced. Superstition is extinct. Peer review what you think. Look how the haters link. Don't forget the kitchen sink. How I hit the beat. Christ is the living key. Take the grail, sip and see. Fish scale, flip a key. In the beginning was the way was the way, the way was God, the way was hard. Every step was symphony, timelines infinity, the wave erase injury. I'm the divine epiphany. Frontline God infantry. Wave is the ministry, surfboard wizardry, frozen water imagery, true to fire imagery, geometric symmetry, standing wave mimicry. The wave is the energy, the trickery is slippery, discovery we're meant to be. I gotta hit the street, thank God for picking me to release the quickening. I made history is sickening, me and God be whispering, and that's why the living spring, bro. We made history, shining, glistening, emphatic christening. I found a missing link, bro. We body getting seen, superstition is extinct. It revealed.
Broke. All right. All right, so we're going to do this quick comparison of proteins real quick. We're going to do this quick comparison of proteins. All right, so here's the trick. Here is the trick. Here's the trick when it comes to the protein comparison. Humans come from an egg and a sperm. I think that's better. Right? Humans come from an egg and a sperm. Right? So, if we're doing an analysis, right? If we're doing an analysis, an egg is always going to be the point of reference for protein. An egg is always going to be the point of reference for protein. Right? An egg is always going to be the number one perfect reference for protein. Right? Because this is designed to make a whole new body from it. Right? An egg is the designation. Right? So the thing is, what are you exactly trying to do? Right? Which is why we go through in the protein book. Right? In the protein book, Today is week 3, day 1, right? If you go to page 46, right? If you go to page 46, if you go now, when you get to the supermarket, it gets different in the supermarket. I don't know what's happening in everybody else's city, but in Michigan, eggs was a big thing. There was like protests, and it was wild the last, I want to say, 4 years. Farmers cussing out politicians, and it was a whole big deal in Michigan. I don't know about everywhere else, right? To the point where the prices of eggs went up dramatically, and then the egg issue got recently. Nobody sells any eggs that have been cruelty, have been raised a certain way or cruel or whatever the case may be. Everything is cage free, I believe. Right? And then you have eggs that have certain amount of vitamins and so it's a whole different universe when you get to the supermarket. Right? But again, if you're trying to put together for dietary purposes a program, you want to be able to figure it out what it is that you're trying to do. Now, algae, on the other hand, algae on the other hand to me is a much better source of protein. A much better source of protein. But it depends on what your everyday goals are. If your goals are longevity, right? If your goals are being an athlete, or maybe you are recovering from injury, or maybe you have a sickness, right? Actual eggs are going to be much higher in cholesterol and fat. But you need the cholesterols and the fats, right? Especially, say, for instance, somebody may be dealing with myelin sheath issues, right? They may be dealing with neurodegenerative issues. Right? Because the main difference is algae is going to have less leucine. Algae is going to have less leucine in it. It's going to have less leucine, but it's going to have way higher amount of antioxidants, pigments, minerals No, I was talking to my No, I was talking to my live stream, but as usual, I had the mic on mute. All right. So here's what I'm saying. Eggs are better for growth when it comes to protein. Eggs are better for growth when it comes to protein. I'm not trying to attack our non-vegan people, right? You have more cholesterol, you have more leucine, right? An egg is designed for growth based on a human's need from sperm. So an egg is always going to be the reference point for the perfect protein, right? Because it's designed to take a human from the sperm and build you all the way out. Everything you need to build you all the way out is in the egg. Very similar to milk. Milk is designed for maximum growth from little to big, right? Maximum growth. Algae, on the other hand, less leucine, right? Leucine is the trigger for growth, right? The trigger for growth, but much higher in antioxidants, much higher in pigments, and much higher in mineral activity. So algae would be the protein of choice for longevity. So algae would be the protein of choice for longevity, right? Now, if you have a disease, neurodegenerative issues, or things like that, eggs might be exactly what you need to get you back in the game. Eggs are very inexpensive, highly bioavailable, right? So if you have neurodegenerative disease, right, get the cholesterol up, right? Get the cholesterol up, choline, right? Now, from here, It's a drop off. From eggs and algae, it is a drop off. From eggs and algae. This is number 1A and 1B when it comes to protein sources. Right? 1A, 1B. Depending on perspective, depending on lifestyle, it could easily be 1A, 1B. For some of us, just because of the price, eggs are 1A and 1B. Right? Because I remember when I was a kid, eggs were extremely cheap. Eggs were extremely cheap. And I don't know what y'all heard and what y'all didn't. You know, the microphone. I'm the microphone fiend after 12. I don't know. Anyway, I'm making no excuses about the mic on mute. But I was saying earlier that in Michigan, the farmers and the politicians and the supermarkets was at war. And it was about a 4 or 5 year battle that ended with, the prices being much higher for egg. Well, I think the prices have dropped. I'm not quite sure. I think the prices have dropped with the eggs. But I know now the egg business is more streamlined. There's only like cage-free eggs and things like that. Right? But that was a big thing. Right? So price-wise, eggs are much less expensive. High-quality eggs are less expensive than high-quality algae. Right? After this, there's a drop-off, though. You go from eggs and algae to plants. Right? You go from eggs and algae to plants, and then you go to meat. Right? You go from eggs and algae to plants. Here we go. Now, keep in mind, the body, the actual body. Keep in mind the actual body, right? The way we look at eggs, right? Sperm to the egg, right? Sperm to egg, that's a part of the design. When we start to get towards animal flesh, we're getting to the fruit of something totally different. Right? So this is the fruit of different genetic material. Right? The fruit of different genetic material. Right? When we go to the plants, we're dealing with plant genetics. Right? We're dealing with plant genetics. So it is a totally different thing. Right? It's a totally different thing. And we don't qualify or categorize this way. Right? Now, the shortcomings. We went through this already before. Right? could do, because we already had this conversation, what we can do. Paul, you just want to have you an omelet. What you talking about, Paul? Paul just trying to find the green light to have an omelet. What you doing, Paul? You trying to get me on video. Like, yeah, go ahead and make you an omelet, Paul. Whoa. That is nasty work right there. Paul trying to set me up. Paul, you trying to set me up? That's crazy.
What you think? Look how the haters link. Don't forget the kitchen sink. Don't ever listen, don't pay the christening. I'm following this link. Way it get insane. Superstition is extinct. Peer review what you think. Look how the haters link. Don't forget the kitchen sink. The wave glistening, the wave christening, the way the missing link. Wave get insane. Superstition is extinct. Peer review what you.
All right, so let's just take a quick look at lysine. Right now, mind you, all I typed in was lysine benefits and functions. Lysine benefits and functions. Right? Lysine is an essential amino acid vital for protein building, collagen synthesis, calcium absorption, skin support, wound healing, muscle repair, and bone density. It's also being studied for reducing herpes flare-ups, anxiety, high blood pressure, and more. But more research is needed. For some uses, it is found in foods like meat, dairy, legumes, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Methionine is an essential amino acid. It builds protein, supports metabolism, detoxification, and tissue repair. Its sulfur content acts as an antioxidant, protects against liver damage, helps produce key compounds, supports brain function, neurotransmitters, aids in absorption of zinc and selenium. While found in meat, fish, and dairy, supplements are available but should be doctor supervised due to potential risk. Okay. So the reason why I pulled up lysine and methionine is most plant protein sources, right? Most plant protein sources, those are the areas that are a challenge. So when they talk about plants not having complete protein or not having the same amount of protein as your beef, your chicken, your turkey, what else is there? What are people eating? Beef, chicken, turkey, pork. Beef, chicken, turkey, or pork, right? Typically, that's what they're talking about. What is all that noise? Did you go on your trip?
Yeah.
Okay. I told you at the bus stop you didn't let me file your paper. Mm-hmm. So if y'all saw the video earlier, when I had to jump on the phone in the middle of the live stream, it's because their school was calling me because somebody forgot their permission slip for their class trip today. Anyway. All right, and then we have dairy. dairy protein, which is usually whey and casein. Whey and casein, right? Now, dairy is high in leucine, growth factor, right? Growth factor. Men, 50s, 60s, 70s, respectfully, you might be less worried about, how do I want to phrase this? And I'm almost in my 50s, but once you get over half a century, right? You might be more worried about your sexual performance than saving the cows, right? You might be more worried about your neurological performance than, saving the fish, right? So I don't pretend to have a platform where everybody that watches the video is a vegan. Everybody that watches our platform, everybody that buys our books, everybody that supports our movement, goes to the website, go to the website, right? Everybody that supports our movement is not necessarily a hardcore vegan. Right? But amongst the vegans, everybody has different reasons for why they become vegan, right? Some people are really about that animal protection, woo, woo, woo. Some people are, in their spiritual pursuit, they don't feel like it's murder. They don't want to participate in that. Some people feel like the residue, the chemical buildup in the animal flesh, it just doesn't make any sense. Like animal flesh is just too toxic. And there's some truth to that, right? Some people are just trying to maximize their longevity, right? So there's a wide variety of reasons, and there's probably more than I just named, right? Why people would be vegan. What I'm saying is, over the course of somebody's life, some of those things may change, right? And if you're a person that is thinking about becoming a vegan, or if you're a vegan thinking about going backwards and incorporating some milk, some eggs, some fish, or some full-blown meat into your diet, if you figure out what it is you're trying to do, you might be able to tweak it a little bit better, regardless to what direction you're going in. You might be able to tweak it a little bit better if you figure out what it is you're trying to do, right? Because if you're trying to get physical performance, sexual performance, mental performance, right, you may be able to do that without having a medium rare steak, right? And if you're already on steak and you're trying to do that, you may be able to do that by just simply stop having the steaks, right? You may not need to go full-blown vegan. You may just get rid of the steaks, the red meat, and make some tweaks, and you might be where you want to be at. So having a grasp on the information gives you the ability to make smaller performance-driven tweaks without necessarily changing your entire lifestyle. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. All right. Now, we went over the proteins a zillion times. We'll probably go over them a zillion more times. Right? Bro, we made history. All right, let's just do this before we move on. Let's just do this before we move on. Right? Because I know there's still some people getting lysine and leucine confused. Right? And we got to get this down packed before we get into trying to figure out a good word for it. I need Me and Tanai was having a conversation. I don't remember when. It wasn't last week. Maybe the week before. It might have been the week before. Me and Tanai was having a conversation, and the conversation went to molecular. It was biochemistry, but it was chemistry, like organic chemistry. And we had gotten to a pocket, and Tanai was explaining, chemical bonds and electron clouds and blah, blah, blah. That's coming up. That's coming up. We got to go into that pocket to really get deep into the protein conversation. That's coming up. There's levels to the protein conversation. That is, and we got to get wavy with it. We got to get wavy. We got to get wavy. Because proteins are literally like waves. Is the flesh. Protein is the flesh. When the word turns flesh, right? There's levels to that. The word turning flesh is like energy becoming matter, but it's also like energy becoming flesh, like flesh. You know what I'm saying? And your flesh would be protein, right? That's what your body is made out of, is protein, right? Outside of water, right? Outside of water, obviously, right? If we remove the water, it's protein. Protein is the thing. Protein is the thing. So we have to understand that whole process, right? Like how we go from I need a pen. That's what I need. We're not going to do it today, though. Hold on.
Mountain Dew. around you or through you. From the Jew with the juju. On the street, truth preaching, God is the way. Bible cracked open, but the scriptures engraved. Human birth, the stars, quantum thoughts behave. Your heart pumps Christ, inspirations to crave. Diabetes, a war, sugar coated sin. Syrup in the veins, bitter battle begin. Yeah. Spiritual warfare, the weapons within. Faith in the blood, watch the healing spin. Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew. You know I ride you the mood, who with the booty, around you or through you. From the Jew with the juju. Shindos are the strings, the violin weak. 808 rumble deep, shaking soul to sleep. Bebop with shadows, a nocturnal leap. In the sound heaven speaks, so in faith to read. You noodle and I'm doodle. Who with the voodoo? Around you or through you. From the Jew with the juju. Electron transport evidence. God is music is resonant. Like tuning force vibrate. Music cause a tri-state. Why hate?
Okay. All right, let me get me some pens. Yo, Peyton is my toughest music critic. Yeah. Trust me, Peyton. I take that information directly to Kepler and the Beatles and let them know in the Kepler Beatles studios. Right? But back to what I was saying. So we're gonna have the conversation to the point where we go from the gases to the flesh. Right? Gases to the flesh. Because remember, these things are gases. What we know of as gases. What is a gas? What is a gas? Right? A gas is a state of matter with no fixed shape or volume where particles, right, atoms and molecules are far apart and move freely, allowing it to expand to fill any container. Highly compressible and has low density, contrasting with solids, which are tightly packed, and liquids, which are loosely connected. Common examples: oxygen, helium, and the air we breathe, right? So we got to have that down packed to where we understand how we get from gas pretty much to flesh, right? Our flesh, our bones, our skin, and the stuff in between that's holding it all together. Right? So we know that we're dealing with carboxylic acids, right? Carboxylic acids with, not necessarily ammonia, right? Ammonia is NH3, but we in that pocket, right? NH2, right? So you're taking an ammonia kinda group and adding that to your carboxylic acid group, and that's how we get amino acids, right? And those amino acids are formed because of how they interact with subatomic particles. Amino acids are formed because of how they interact with those tricky old waves. Those tricky old waves. That is how we get amino acids. How amino acids interact with waves. That is literally how amino acids are put together. Period. Right? That is the whole idea of biochemistry. Reduction, oxidation. The side that's attracted to electrons, the side that's attracted to protons. Right? So you have the same thing over and over layered, right? You have the same process over and over layered. Magnetism, right? Magnetism over and over. It's just magnetism, but not necessarily in a textbook type of way, right? Not in a textbook type of way. Magnetism in terms of attraction and repulsion. That's it. Attraction, repulsion. This is biochemistry. And all of biochemistry can be described here. Attraction and repulsion. Everything else is descriptive and maybe even overcomplications. Right? Because earlier we discussed in Black's anatomy class, right? We discussed water and how water puts proteins together, right? Via attraction and repulsion, right? But when we go deeper into chemistry, right, we have redox. Redox is in that bag. Redox is in that bag. Redox talks about the attraction or repulsion of positive or negative ions. The attraction or repulsion of positive or negative ions, right? Oxidizing and reduction. And when you begin to classify, right, you can classify alkalines, acids this way, particularly with dietary, in a dietary conversation. Alkalines, acids. Right? So we're going to say these are proton donors. Right? So they repulse, they push away positive ions. Right? They attract negative ions. Excuse me. Acids attract negative ions. On the flip side, you have just the opposite. Reduction, alkaline, reduction, base, right? You have the repulsion, right? Repulsion can be like, it's loose. It's loose. But it can be likened to donating. Donating would be the term that would be used. Donating and accepting, right? Donating would be pushing away. Accepting would be pulling towards. Donating would be pushing away. Accepting would be pulling towards. So an alkaline is going to push away negative ions, and it's going to pull to it positive ions. So you can get into a space where you really view this as pushing and pulling. Pushing and pulling. But when you get into encoding information, translating information, it gets more specific. What y'all talking about over here? What you mean? What you mean? What you mean? And then, hold on. Okay, Peyton. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Chief, can you can you come back with the question again? I seen your question, but and then I also obviously we saw the information Peyton was trying to add on. But can you ask your question? Because this is almost like a simple yes or no question, and I don't know if you wanted me to give you a yes or no answer, because I think a yes or no answer would be like cheap. I think it would be cheap. You know what I'm saying? So yes, just on a simple yes or no answer, definitely the body is the body has an electrical the body has an electrical nature to it. Sure. I don't necessarily think I don't think Sabi had the whole idea. So one of my early research papers was that the body was not electrical, that the body was actually luminous, right? That the body ran on light and not on electricity per se, right? But in reality, electricity, light, and magnetism function as a trinity. Quite possibly the original and only trinity. So if you can refine your question, I could probably give you a little bit better of an answer. But that is the story of life. Electricity and magnetism are constantly recreating one another, and the interplay of electricity and magnetism are constantly producing light. That's the magic of life. That is it right there. All right. We must have lost Chief, but that was a good question. Those were some good answers too, Peyton. Those was good answers too. Yeah, those was good answers too. But I'm not sure if that answered his question because he said, like Sabi said. So sometimes when somebody makes a reference to somebody else, the question is less about the specific science and more about the doctrine of the person. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not sure if he's asking us about the electrical nature of the body or if he's asking us, did Sabi have it correct in terms of what Sabi was proposing? Okay, if we are electrical beings, how is flesh protein and not atoms? Okay, so the thing is, protein is atoms, so it's not either or. Protein is atoms, it's not either or. So you're not in a situation where in order for that to make sense, you have to choose one of the two. Right? So here you go. And this is kind of what I was saying. So that's actually a good question. That's actually a good question. So here we go. This is oh, that's another way I'm muting the mic. That I just figured something out. When I don't pay any attention, right? Say sometimes the mic is up here blocking the board. Because the mic button is on top right here, anytime I touch the top of the microphone, I'm turning off them. That's crazy. Anyway, so let's walk it down, right? So you have waves up here, right? Here's the land of waves, right? And we're going to do electrons, protons, photons, right? So we got waves, electrons, protons, photons. Electrons, protons, and photons comes together and makes atoms. Right? Atoms are made out of electrons, protons, and photons. Right? I don't know if you're like, no, photons are not in there. They're not in there. But when electrons and protons come together to make an atom, they're constantly absorbing photons and releasing photons. So photons are very much a part of an atom, right? But a strict person sticking to the strict textbook would say, no, just electrons and protons. Fine, right? But these subatomic particles or waves is what makes up an atom. Now, you add atoms together and you get compounds and molecules, right? Specifically, right? COOH plus NH2, right? So you're going to add a carbon atom. You're going to add a carbon atom, which is carbon is number 6, right? So literally, you're going to take 6 electrons and 6 protons. You're going to add that with 8 electrons and 8 protons twice, right? Because you have 2 oxygens. And the oxygen is made out of 8 protons in the nucleus with 8 electrons around it, right? And then you have hydrogen, which is just 1 and 1, right? So you're adding up a whole bunch of electrons and protons, but to keep the math simplified, they just do atoms, right? So you add in a carbon, 2 oxygens, a hydrogen. This right here gives us a carboxylic acid group. Then on the other side, you have a nitrogen with a couple of hydrogens. This gives us our amine / ammonia. This is that family, right? So you put these together and you get aminos. This is how you get to amino acids, right? So you get your amino acids, right? Let's be more specific, right? So now you have your amino acids, right? Then you're going to take your amino acids and put them together and form proteins. So proteins are made out of amino acids. Amino acids are made out of compounds and molecules. Compounds and molecules are made out of atoms, and the atoms are made out of the more pure energy sources, which we know of as particles and waves, right? So it's not a matter of the body being made out of proteins or atoms. The proteins are made out of atoms. And the thing that glues them all together, right? Like here, we have a carbon, oxygen, oxygen. The thing that glues these atoms all together is electrons. Electrons are the glue of atoms. So in chemistry, they would say ionic bonds or covalent bonds, right? There's some other types, but those are the main ones, ionic or covalent bonds, right? That just means the different types of bonds is just a different ways that electrons come together and bring atoms together, period. But it's always an electron story, bringing electrons together. Now, when you get into conductors versus non-conductors, that is a story about electron wave probability traveling. So it gets a little bit more, it gets a little bit more crazy, right? But when we're talking about the flesh that the body is made out of, it's not atoms or proteins, right? The proteins are made from amino acids. The amino acids are made from the compounds, which are made from the atoms, which are made from the electrons and the protons. Now, when Dr. Sebi was saying that the body was electric, right? Dr. Sebi was, man, we about to have a whole Dr. Sebi session, right? So here's what Dr. Sebi was trying to do, because Dr. Sebi didn't really have the advantage that I had. You know what I'm saying? How your parents be like, they yelling at the kids like you didn't have to struggle like I did. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. So I have the advantage of being able to study Robert Becker, right? Robert O. Becker. If you never heard of Robert O. Becker, he's the primary reference for electricity in the body, not Dr. Sebi. Dr. Sebi is the primary reference for eating a natural diet to complement an electric body, right? Robert Becker, if you go through his material, he don't got none of that. He don't know nothing about no herbs and what food and this and that and the other. That ain't in his material, right? Most of the people though in the holistic space, they never heard of Robert O. Becker. My people have, because I always mention him, you know what I'm saying? But in general, most places I go, talk and speak, they don't know who that is. He's a legend in the science universe, right? He's a legend in the science universe. You know, in some spaces, you know, when he was in his prime, he was considered a pseudoscientist, but over the last 20 years, research has confirmed that he was way ahead of his time, right? So a lot of what was considered to be shaky in his books, in his early teachings, is now becoming like the Bible for geneticists trying to figure out, you know, we have coding conversations on DNA and some of these other conversations, how magnetic fields interplay with the expression of DNA or methylation, you know, how methylation silences, you know, just all of those conversations. Anyway, so Sebi was on the other side. Sebi had an experience, right? He was a regular guy, smoking, drinking, having sex, doing his thing. He ran into a bunch of problems. He got some help where the medical system couldn't help him. He got some help from a herbalist. Just so happens it's a Mexican guy, you know, helped him with some herbs. The Mexican guy didn't have any real information for him, though, outside of, if these problems pop up, use these herbs. The way Sebi's mind is hardwired, he went to find out how, who, what, where, when, and why. How could he get some help from this guy who the establishment said is, you know, doesn't really know what he's talking about, but the establishment couldn't help him. So it turns out the establishment didn't have any answers for metabolic disease, where this guy, going back to plants and nature, etc., did, right? So now he's trying to figure out some stuff. So in his studies, right, a lot of us are so in love with Dr. Sebi that we're more interested in Dr. Sebi than Dr. Sebi's information or his sources, you know what I'm saying? But that's never been a problem for me, right? So I recognized early, yes, Dr. Sebi was Nation of Islam, right? So a part of Dr. Sebi's source material is Elijah Muhammad. Part of Dr. Sebi's source material is Elijah Muhammad. Now, if you've never read Elijah Muhammad's books, How to Eat to Live, then when Sebi says certain things that comes from those books, you won't be able to recognize it. Another person that Dr. Sebi got a real that was a heavy influence on Dr. Sebi was Arnold Ehret. Arnold Ehret, right? Arnold Ehret was a white guy who was a super genius, right? But Arnold Ehret was on just diet, heliotherapy, you know, sunlight, diet, you know, just that kind of stuff. It wasn't any science or any, you know, the body being electric and this, and that, and the other. It wasn't any of that. So Sebi put together some things from different sources, right? I don't know where he got the concept of hiding redox in plain sight. I don't know where he got that. Yeah, I don't know where he got that, right? Because that's what he was talking about. With the whole alkaline and acid foods, that was biochemistry 101 redox. You know what I'm saying? Bases and acids. But he was also at the same time telling people not to read any books, which confused me. I was like, you could have only got that out of books. So now why are you telling people not to read books? That's very colonizer of you. That's very colonizer of you, Sabi, to read books, get empowered, and then to keep people dependent on you, tell them, don't read any books, just listen to you. I was like, so I always, I was like, okay, I'm watching you, Sabi. You wow right now. What is this? So yeah, but so I don't know where he got that concept, right? But I think it was from early studies, right? Early studies, because remember, Sabi is rocking in the 80s, right? It's 2025 right now. We keep Sabi so alive that we don't realize how long ago Sabi was really rocking. Like Sabi's prime is the 80s. Like that's his prime. Mid 80s to the early 90s. That is Dr. Sabi's prime. That's 30, 40 years ago. That's 30 to 40 years ago. Right? So in that pocket, mitochondria, like there's still people that don't know what mitochondria is or how it works. So just imagine in the 80s, right? So I think that's what he was referring to. The early information circulating about mitochondria and how we break food down, right? Because it still sounds very high tech. You sound like you're an amazing genius and all that if you explain to people now how the mitochondria works. So doing that in the 80s was like you was an alien, especially in the Black community. So I think that concept that the body's electric stems from there, right? But I took a lot of flack, like I do all the time. Anytime I come with brand new research that the community has never heard before, I already know that I'm getting ready to get a lot of arrows and knives in the back. So when I came, and this may be 10 years ago, something like that, when I told people that the body is not exactly electric, the body runs on light. It was go time. It was like, oh, he's attacking Dr. Sabi. I'm like, no, I'm just explaining that mitochondria are its own separate creature that formed a symbiotic relationship with cells a long time ago. But in our bodies today, they still have their own DNA. We have nuclear DNA, and then our mitochondria has its own functional DNA. And so the relationship that we have with mitochondria is that we're breaking down the food and we're sending the food that we consume to them. We're feeding the mitochondria, so to speak. And then the mitochondria is recycling ATP, and we use the ATP. But we get the electron transport chain confused with ATP. The electron transport chain is inside mitochondria. It's not necessarily floating around loose in your cells, right? The ATP comes out of the mitochondria and it goes into the cell and it's oxidized into the cell. And when the ATP is oxidized, the energy released from ATP is what we use, is what our cells run on, not electrons in the electron transport chain. The electrons in the electron transport chain, all of that stays confined in the mitochondria, right? What we use, what our cells use for energy is the exothermal release of kinetic energy and light from ATP oxidation. So it's not necessarily an electron release. It is kinetic energy, which is able to apply a force to proteins and organelles in the near vicinity, as well as releasing thermal energy, which is a form of light that the organelles in the cells is also able to harness. So when I said that, it was back to looking like my spaceship just landed in the backyard, and it was like, what? What did this nigga just say? You talk about my mama? One of those looks. So, but yeah, so technically, there's electricity running through your body at all times. There's magnetism running through your body at all times, and there's light being produced, harnessed, transformed, transported, and at all times. So yeah, there's electricity, there's magnetism, and there's light doing the life thing at all times. Well, you new to the family over here. You know what I'm saying? So, hopefully we can get you to Amazon. We have about 150 books on Amazon. We can get you to start buying some of these books and come into some more classes, right? This is week 3, day 1 of our protein class. So here's the primary book for this class. This is the primary book for this class. Right? But over here, we don't really do open arguments or, like open forum mostly. We do like classes. But every so often, we will be doing some more open panels just so we can argue and, act a fool. So we'll have some of that going on as well. If I redid the book cover, man, I don't know. I wouldn't though. I don't know if I yeah. I'm against superstition, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I do have superstitions. So because we already did it, and it's already what it is, I don't know if I'll redo it, especially not that. Like that's book 1. Like that's ground zero. I don't know if I would mess with that. You know what I'm saying? The way my mind works. You know what I'm saying? Like something might happen. I don't know. I wouldn't mess with that book. All right. So hopefully though, because that was a good question, that was a good rabbit hole to jump down into. Hopefully we got some good info from that conversation. I think that's good. All right, so back to protein. All right, so anyway, in the book, we spent a really good amount of time from page 49 to page 53 on protein specifically for regeneration, right? That's healing the body or building muscle, right? Healing the body or building muscle. Page 54, we get into the law of the limiting amino acid. The human body cannot store excess essential amino acids for later use. It must have all 9 essential amino acids present in the correct ratios in the exact moment of synthesis, right? Or you don't get the synthesis. You don't get to build the tissue, right? If you don't have it when you need it, you cannot use it, right? So we kind of walked through a very similar conversation, or I would say a more detailed version, right? Just providing more details. All right, and then we get to only because we just had this conversation with Chief. Now I'm thinking we might need because I was gonna skip this. Well, it's not going to take too long. Here's a part of the conundrum. Here's a part of the conundrum. Let me see. Do we got enough space? We might even be able to get this right squeezed in right here on the side without even going crazy. All right. Right. All right, so I'm squeezing these in on the side over here. So the DNA, right? The DNA, right? The DNA that tells the body how to build proteins is made also out of proteins. The A and the G is made from glycine, glutamine, and aspartate. The C, T, and the U is made from glutamine, aspartate, and carbon dioxide. Right? Now, if you want that in your book, go to your book, page 58 to page 60, gives you a little bit more detail. Right? Gives you a little bit more detail. But I felt like it was good to add on top of this because it's an alternative route over this way. Right? So we go waves, right? Electrons, protons make up atoms. Atoms make up these components, right? Your carboxylic acids, your amines. And then from here, you get your amino acids, which make up your proteins. And then also that DNA language, right? That DNA language, right? And I know my DNA, my winding staircase looks crazy. It looks much more closer to a ribbon than actual DNA, but that's, yeah, we rolling with it. Well, here's what I would suggest for you, Chief. Here's what I would suggest for you. I would suggest you go to Amazon and get the plant genetics book. Go to Amazon, get the plant genetics book. The plant genetics book will benefit you and whoever else you are studying with. You will really enjoy that book. You will really enjoy that book. Right? You will really enjoy that book. Because in that book, for instance, if I wanted to take this to a much, much deeper conversation, right? In fact, let me see if I can find that book real quick. Let me see if I can find that book real quick. And then we jump into something. Okay. All right. All right. So everybody thank Chief for turning today's class into the Dr. Sabi class. I haven't had like a Dr. Sabi discussion in a minute. Right? So this is cool though. This is cool. Right? So one of the things that Dr. Sabi got me to do. What happened to my drink? Aubrey! This how we getting violated. It's crazy.
Aubrey's sleeping.
Aubrey's sleeping. That's how she violate. Where's my drink? She never bring me my cup. Yo, that's crazy. She came in from school and she the one who called earlier. I stopped the class so I could give the school permission. You know what I'm saying? So she could go on her trip and she come back home and just doze off on me. Now, I need... Oh my God, this is delicious. Okay. Where's any big kids? Yeah, tell Caleb to put the teapot on for me. But make sure he actually does it. Are we going to get back to the eggs? Point of reference for proteins and the milk being a vital source as well. Okay, so let me clarify. So in the book, right? In the book, and you should have your book. Chief is new, but you should already have your book. But in the book, eggs and milk are not necessarily vital sources, right? They're not necessarily vital sources. They're good sources, depending on what it is that you're trying to do. But you can get... The purpose of us going through them is so you can see that, contrary to how they may be promoted, they are not the only or sole provider of what it is that you need, right? Because America is a society where we have too much protein. Americans do not have a problem of not getting enough protein. That is not the American problem. The American problem is too much protein. Internet battles and internet debates may create the idea that people are not getting enough protein and blah, 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 blah. But that's overall, that's not a problem people are having. Only people that are really working out, like really extremely hard, can run into problems where they're not getting enough protein in. But John Q. Public is not having a protein issue. John Q. Public is not having a protein issue. So the idea, right? The idea is algae is as good, if not a better source of protein than eggs are. Algae is as good, if not better, a source of protein than eggs are. It's not like we're eating like human eggs, which would be kind of crazy, borderline cannibalism, right? We're eating chicken eggs, right? And so, yeah, but I was saying price-wise, right, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, eggs may be a better source of protein for some people just because of sheer budget and availability, right? And then in terms of leucine, right, I was looking up leucine. Well, we looked at lysine and methionine really quick because lysine and methionine are the two amino acids that you get lower amounts from plants as opposed to meat and dairy, right? But you can put your plate together in a way where you get plenty of lysine, plenty of methionine, right? Which is why our near ancestors, right, our recent ancestors, right, they always put together a grain and a bean, right? Whether it's rice and beans, quinoa and beans, something like that. They always put a grain with the beans because grains and beans complement each other and give you all the protein you need without having to worry about meat and dairy. Once you put the grains and the beans together, you're good. So if you have rice and beans come together and give you a complete protein source. You straight. Bro, that listen, that's what I'm saying. Yo, it's crazy. In the US, we eat 300% more protein than recommended. And what happens is, for the people that don't know, when you eat more sugar, your body stores it. When you eat more fat, your body stores it, right? When you eat more protein, your body can't store protein. So your body converts the protein to sugar. So this is why protein can even be problematic for diabetes. So we really gotta we really gotta watch that intake. Nobody should be doing over 100 grams of protein every day, bro. That's wow. Nobody should be doing more than 100 grams of protein a day. Unless you're in the NFL or the NBA or something like that, you should not be doing more than 100 grams of protein. If you're in the NBA, fine. If you're in the NFL, you know what I'm saying? If you maybe even not even NFL players. NBA players have a rougher job than NFL players. NFL players, remember, they only playing 1 or 2 games a week. So maybe 1 or 2 days a week, they might need in excess of 100 grams of protein, but day to day, nah. Basketball players have a high turnover. They need a lot. So basketball players may need more than 100 grams of protein a day. Soccer players may need more than 100 grams of protein per day. You know what I'm saying? But nobody else does, right? I can't think of anybody offhand that needs that much protein. It's a wild amount of protein. Okay, right. That is a whole nother space. Yeah, that's a whole nother space. So I don't know. We might get to, yeah, I have conversations with some friends of mine. And they say, yo, come on, Doc, you Haitian. You Haitian, we got to have some other types of conversations. And they want me to bring some different types of personalities onto the YouTube, onto the page. So I'm having some talks behind the scenes of maybe having some of those type of conversations. Yeah, but that's different than what we are right now. That is a very different type of conversation. Yeah, that's a very, very different type of conversation. But yeah, but in terms of just regenerating the muscle tissue and being healthy, nobody really needs over 100 grams of protein. The only people who are promoting the idea that people might need more than 100 grams of protein are the cow people, the cowboys. This is very much still a cowboy country. Cowboys are still billionaires, multi-millionaires. So they are promoting that. And cowboys include the people who are selling protein powder. 90% of the protein powder that is sold is milk, whey-based protein powder. So it is still the farmers and the cowboys that are getting that money. And they are suggesting, more. And they have people that are on large health platforms, and they come on and say, well, I'm a doctor from such and such. I'm a nuclear physicist. I've got 17 degrees in nuclear physiology, and, people get dazed by that kind of stuff. And they're like, yeah. And so for my studies, I've particularly been on a diet where I've been having several thousand grams of protein per day. And what I can tell you is I've never felt more alive in my life. I seem to be regenerating and aging backwards by having several thousand raw steaks and drinking raw blood smoothies where I've pretty much been tapping into my second childhood. And it's amazing because my memory, it's like I can remember swimming around in my dad's testicles. So my memory is so strong that I can remember pre-pregnancy. It is amazing. Yeah, and folks be like, "Yo, I'm about to jump on this," and they be texting me. They be texting me all the time. Yo, it's crazy, bro. I'm about to get on this. Yo, what you think about this? I'm like, what is that? They're like, yo, I'm telling you, this dude, his name is Calvin, whatever. His name is Lewis, whatever, PhD from such and such and such. He said he just discovered how. Yeah. All that stuff be gobbledygook. It'd be gobbledygook. There's no the fine tuning and the studying that we have to have is in the energy space. We've done a lot modern science has done a lot in terms of matter. In terms of matter, modern science is beastie. Like OD, like we there. We are severely lacking in the understanding of energy. And it becomes a limiting factor for us understanding matter because matter is composed of energy. And that's kind of where the conversation between science and spirituality come together. Like that's where the line gets really blurry because energy is the world of spirit. The only difference is our ancestors had to make a distinction between spirituality and energy conversations because, atheists, began running the world. And atheists deal with energy from a standpoint that it is devoid of information, devoid of intelligence, devoid of the ability to self-organize. And so that was the thing for a very long time up until quantum mechanics. And then quantum mechanics came in with a very technical view of energy and reinstated the intelligence back into energy without saying spirituality or anything like that. They just start talking about the inherent quality of energy to self-organize. Well, you can't self-organize without information. So there's only one of two ways to look at that, right? There's either information that exists in the energy prior to organization, or you can look at the ability to self-organize as the ability to create and store information, right? But organization, there's information. So there's no way to get around the elephant in the room. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it gets crazy. Paul said, go the other way. I like that. Go the other way. I like that. Right? But that's further down the line on this. Right? Because we got something up here, right? Like above this is the thing up here. Right? So that's what the quest to figure out the universe is, that there was originally nothing and then there was something. So how did that happen? And then studying the something came as waves and energy, right? And then this whole process. And then another thing happens, right? Consciousness. Where does consciousness come from? Right? But to go back to the nutrition conversation, right? To go back to the nutrition conversation, hop back on the Sabi train for a second. Pause. Yo, I can't win today. It's wild. Yo, y'all better not ask me for nothing later. This is wild. Y'all better not ask me for nothing later. Don't try it. It's too late. I already got it myself. Yeah. Okay. All right. Put that right there. Burned up my lips. Right? So here's the thing. one of the things that Sabi did say, right, and it kind of inspired me, and it's important to the overall conversation about protein and just nutrition in general, right? One of the things that Sabi said was that the how did he used to say? What did he used to say? When they bring black folks here from Africa, they didn't bring their food with them. You know, the polar bear is supposed to eat polar bear food, and the gorilla is supposed to eat the gorilla food, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to try to figure out what exactly that was, right? And I had some experience over time as well, like with certain herbs, just from you know, like a hustling standpoint, right? Like a holistic hustling standpoint. I had learned some stuff just on herbs from that direction. Because some stuff you learn from books, and then some stuff you learn best in the real world from experience. And I had learned some stuff about some plants, but it wasn't until I had my moringa experiences that it really hit home. It really hit home. And then I wound up, God led me to having some debates, some arguments, and in preparing for those debates and arguments, with a brother by the name of Chief X. His name is Chief X. You may not know who it is, but shout out to him wherever he is. Right. I had to go deep into the moringa bag. Right. I'm a fan of moringa. Dr. Sabi's not a fan of moringa. Chief X at the time was a moringa salesman who was attacking me and Dr. Sabi. So that whole love triangle was interesting. So I felt like I needed to get to the bottom of it by getting to the bottom of moringa, especially because in one of his videos, I had saw where he was getting his moringa from. And I'm like, oh, he don't know yet. Yeah, you can't talk crazy to me and you don't know this. Right. So, but anyway, long story short, what I had learned over time and then was exemplified in my moringa adventures was where a plant grows at matters. Where a plant grows at matters, right? Because moringa is such a high commodity that people are growing moringa all over everywhere so they can sell it. But depends on where a plant grows. Depending on where a plant grows determines how nutritious that plant will be. And it's not just a matter of what I thought at the time, right? Which was, soil determines the mineral availability and light and rain. Light and rain are going to be different every season. So every season you'll get a different harvest, even if you grow a plant in the same space. But if you take that plant from where it's native and grow it in another country, that's going to be totally different. So that plant may look like the same vehicle, but the nutrition it's carrying is going to be totally different than, so if you get a moringa plant or tree rather, and grow it in Texas versus, Southern India or Eastern Africa, right? You have two totally different plants. It could be the same strain of moringa, but it's not going to have the same nutrient profile, right? So stuff like that, right? Stuff like that. And then Dr. Sabi saying, his polar bear and gorilla thing, and just certain things like that made me want to go deeper into plant genetics, right? And all of this stuff is in the plant genetics book, right? So you can go to Amazon for more information and get the plant genetics book, right? But even we have had conversations about nucleoside analogs. Let me pull that up for folks. Right? So let's go over here. All right, well, let's do that. What is a nucleoside? Right? A nucleoside is a fundamental biological molecule made of a nitrogenous base, adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, or uracil, joined to a 5-carbon sugar without a phosphate group. They are the core components that form nucleotides, which are the monomers of DNA and RNA, and play a vital role in genetics and medicine. Okay, so this is what we were talking about right here. Right? Here is the nucleotides on the board, the A, G, C, T, and U, right? Right here, C, T, and U, right? A, G, C, T, and U, right? Now, what is a nucleoside analog? A nucleoside analog is a man-made compound that structurally resembles a natural nucleoside, the building block of DNA, RNA. Because they mimic natural nucleosides, they can interfere with the replication of viruses and cancer cells by getting incorporated into new DNA and RNA strands, which can stop the process or cause errors. These analogs are a major class of drugs used to treat conditions like viral infections, HIV, hepatitis, herpes, and cancer. Full stop. Full stop. Right? So when I learned that there was a whole nother universe, because Dr. Sebi's folks, I realized over time they didn't really know much when it came to plants, right? So when you listen to them talk respectfully, they tell you about the minerals in plants. Well, this is high in this mineral, and this is high in that mineral, and this mineral does this, and that mineral does that. And that's cool. That's true. I'm not taking anything away from that. But there's a lot more layers to the complexity of plants and their therapeutic value than just saying mineral, right? You have pigments, right? Antioxidants, polyphenols, right? You have sulfur compounds. You have bitters, usually alkaloids, right? You have terps. You have all of these different things that are different types of therapeutic compounds in plants. So it's not to say that minerals are not therapeutic from plants or whatever the case may be, but that's like the elementary. You know what I'm saying? There's so many other things in a plant that make it good for you or bad for you, right? And so I was, trying to figure out all that stuff, right? But then also, again, Dr. Sebi said something different that, like guys like Dr. Africa and other folks, they weren't. He said in one of them old videos, he said something about having a complete genetic makeup. And I was like, what? That drove me insane. I was like, what is he talking about? The plants having a complete genetic makeup. So that's how I came up with the concept years and years ago of plant genetics. Because that got me into searching to try to figure out how did plant genetics outside of, now mind you, I just named you a laundry list of things that make plants therapeutically active: minerals, antioxidants, polyphenols, bitters, saponins, all of these different things, right? Phytoestrogen, estrogens, phytoandrogens. Like there's just a zillion different things in plants that we know of now, right? But then also this other thing about the genetics, right? AGCTU, plants had genetics, right? And somehow Sebi was hinting around that the plant genetics had something to do with the healing. So when I went down that rabbit hole, that took me into a whole nother universe. And that's where I got introduced to this concept. The concept of genetic material as a some sort of therapeutic agent, right? That's how I found this. Nobody else had ever. Dr. Sebi has never even found this. This is Dr. Inky original research type of information. You know what I'm saying? Nobody has ever presented this. Dr. Sebi sparked my brain to do the research, and in doing the research, I came across this whole universe of medicine where big pharma has been, you know, like pimping, big pimping for a long time, making $1 bazillion. And so I began to explore this concept. You know what I'm saying? I began to explore this concept of the nucleosides and nucleotides themselves. The nucleotides and nucleosides themselves being therapeutic agents, right? So we go into that in the book. In the plant genetics book, that's one of the things that we talk about, right? But the problem with that is this is an area of research that I don't think mainstream, like even herbalists or anything, like it wasn't, it had the timing had to be now. So it wasn't even meant for me to do the book 10, 15 years ago when I first thought of it. The timing had to be now because the science is evolving. The science is getting to a space where, you know, like we have the conversation about multiple codes being at work in a cell as opposed to just one, right? And talking about how electric fields and magnetic fields interact, even drive the expression or silencing of genetic coding, right? Now we can have a more broad conversation in terms of plants and what other, you know, therapeutic agents might be hidden in the plant genetics that big pharma, you know, probably knew about, and they've been rocking for a while because they've been making stuff out of it. That's where they've been getting the nucleoside analogs from. Not just land plants, right? But trees, shrubs, bushes, and then in the ocean. A lot of the algae, you know what I'm saying? A lot of the algae, a lot of the plankton, all those things have been used by Big Pharma to synthesize medicines. What y'all talking about? Y'all over here going crazy. Let me see what y'all talking about. Are the herbs in the middle of the earth better? I wouldn't think so. No. Yeah, I don't even think that's a yeah, that's not a I mean, yeah. It's just better for what purpose? You know what I'm saying? Like better for what purpose? Because I prefer cold water algae, which is north and south, not the equator. You know what I'm saying? The Chondrus crispices, the bladderwracks. You can't change the soil, the plant will change. That's a fact. That's a fact. But a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that. And for money purposes, people are, growing, they're buying plots of land. Like you hear about it all the time, especially on the internet in conversations like this. You'll hear somebody pop out and be like, well, I got 10 acres of whatever. I got 3 acres of land or whatever the case may be. Let's grow some herbs. And so they'll just start ordering seeds off the internet. And wherever they got their land, they trying to grow whatever they could grow there. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Those are also conversations. Regina is in a whole nother bag. Regina's in a whole nother bag today. But that is a fact, right? So whether you have the discussion of ley lines or you talk about tectonic plates, there are places where the inherent energy in the soil is just different. And those are conversations we haven't really got to be able to quantify yet because this is still new. This is still new. People still understanding the exploration of energy and this and that and all that kind of stuff. Like in a real sense, we've had, years of the scientific establishment frowning on the energy conversation. And so because the scientific establishment frowned on the energy conversation, people had to kind of do it yourself kind of stuff. So that's where a lot of chakra foolishness and all that comes into play. But as we start to get to know the other side of matter, or even the other side of Einstein equation, right? Because Einstein gave the equation E equals mc squared. And I don't know. People should have took that and ran with it. Nobody did. Because again, people who are into studying spirituality are not people who are into studying science. And people who are into studying science aren't into studying spirituality. So they missed it. But E equals mc squared was absolutely an opportunity to go crazy in terms of spirituality. Right? Because what it's saying is that E equals mc squared is saying that the stuff that we cannot see and touch is what makes the stuff that we can see and touch. And the stuff that we can't see and touch is the primary stuff, which is all spiritual people and spiritual systems are saying, no, it's the stuff that you can't see and touch that makes the stuff that you can see and touch. And they're not necessarily equals. The stuff that you can't see and touch is the primary. Because the stuff that you can see and touch is temporary. Matter is temporary. Matter is temporary, whether you're talking about rocks, planets, or people, is temporary. At some point, that energy is going to go back into a purely energetic state. It's going to transform. That's why even on the periodic table, stuff has a rate of decay. Stuff has a rate of decay. And we talked about that already, right? Back in Kemet, what did they have? In order to represent the rate of decay, they had a metric. This, all of this science has already been represented. This is why they had Anubis or Anpu, right? Anubis, Anpu represents the agent of decay, because all matter is in a state of decay, right? The transformation process is set in, right? Matter is temporary, whether it's flesh, metal, rock, doesn't matter. There is a rate of decay, which has made gold so special. Gold is very special because of that. That's why gold was always associated with the spirit. What? You trolling now for sure. Yeah, he said when I asked Google for the Christ Kemetic meaning, it gives Inky's definition and a link to the book. I'm dead. I'll believe that when I see it. Let me ask Google what that means. Definition QRST. Oh, that's crazy. That is interesting. Okay. Shout out to Google. Shout out to Google. Shout out to Google. That is crazy. That is crazy. That is wild. Yeah, we getting listed. We getting listed. Yeah, we getting listed out here in these streets. That is interesting. Interesting. AI reads human scroll. Man, bruh, I'm dead. yo, 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 the AI is on me. I'm hot. Yo, I'm hot out here in these streets. That is interesting. That is kind of creepy. That's creepy, and that's kind of dope at the same time. Yeah, I need a. We need a break. We need a break now. We need a break. That was kind of crazy. I think we gotta go with this. Yeah, I think we gotta go with this. Just on that note.
Melanin versus diabetes, we in here. Melanin versus diabetes, we in here. Melanin versus diabetes, we in here. We discovered it. In the beginning was the wave. The wave was with God, and the wave was God.
In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God, the way was hard. Every step a symphony, timelines infinity, the way we raise injury. I'm the divine epiphany. We made history, articulate a mystery, the wave is a remedy. God kissed me, listen, we made history, flawless victory, they dissing me in misery. In misery, it don't get to me, but we made history. I gotta live it, my juices efficiently, bro, we made history. Magician tweet, we made history, rewriting industry, ain't no quitting me, bro, we made history, articulating mystery, clarify the vision, we dancing in victory, we made history, in heaven walk with me, in the way swim with me, in the beginning was the way was God, the way was God, the way was hard, every step a symphony, timelines infinity, the wave erase injury, I'm the divine epiphany. We made history, articulating mystery, the wave is a remedy. God kissing me, listen, we made history, flawless victory, they dissing me in misery. Man, I made history, it don't get to me. Bro, we made history, I gotta live this, my jewels used efficiently. Bro, we made history, we make history, rewriting industry, ain't no quitting me. Bro, we made history, articulating mystery, clarify the vision, we dancing in victory. We made history, in heaven walk with me, in the way swim with me. In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God, the way was hard. Every step a symphony, timelines infinity, the way be erase injury. I'm the divine epiphany. We made history, articulating mystery, the wave is a remedy. God kissing me, listen, we made history, flawless victory, they dissing me in misery. Mad, I made history, it don't get to me. Bro, we made history, I gotta live this, my jewels used efficiently. Bro, we made history, we made history, rewriting industry, ain't no quitting me. Bro, we made history, articulating mystery, clarify the vision, we dancing in victory. We made history, in heaven walk with me, in the waves with me. In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God, the way was hard. Every step a symphony, timelines infinity,
Leave them. Let them say what they want to say. Let them say what they want to say. Yeah, as long as they saying it. Remember, it's not about whether people say bad things about you or whether they say good things about you. It's just about whether they say anything about you at all. So we working. We got it up there. You know what I'm saying? We can't get everything. You know what I'm saying? We got it up there. Boop. So now it's up there. Now we got to stay at work though. We turn on the music, we get a quick little dance, and then we back to work. Like Emmett Smith. Was that Emmett Smith? I think it was Emmett Smith. Emmett Smith did that commercial after they won the Super Bowl. And he was like, woo, I won the Super Bowl. Now I can take a break. He was on the bench press and he was working out. You know what I'm saying? And he like stopped working out. And he was like, man, I won the Super Bowl. So now I could take a break. And then like after 1 second, he started bench pressing the weight again. So that's it, right? We get a little tiny moment, celebration, then we get back to work. You know what I'm saying? Because we gotta move the, you know what I'm saying? We gotta move the chains. That's just a first down. That ain't a touchdown. That's a first down. You know what I'm saying? That's all. That's a fast break with a nice dunk, but the game ain't over. You know what I'm saying? We still got a lot of work to do. It's just good to see little things like that happen. Yeah, it's just good to see little things like that happen. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's all. So, whew. All right. All right. Bro, we made history. In the beginning was the way. All right. The root amino acids of nucleosides and nucleotides. Okay. And then we have the turnover. Turnover rate. In the Church of One Enough for Christ, DNA is a container of information, and nucleotides are like words. Amino acids are like letters. Without them, the scroll cannot be written. Current is the scribe's hand. Oxygen is the lamp. ATP is the paper-making running mill in the background. The doctrine is simple. No complete amino acid profile, no complete nucleotide set, no complete cell, no complete current. All right. That might more be a conversation for cancer. All right, that's what I think I want to do. Jump to page 64. How long have we been talking? More than 2 hours? All right, we might just start here next. Yeah, we might just start here on the next, because it's it's 5:30. All right. So when we pick up, we're going to pick up from page 64. Next class. I don't know when we're going to do next class. But next class, we're going to start with the piezoelectric demands of bone marrow and the axial skeleton, right? That's on page 64. So if you have your book, you can start poking around already for next class.
From the Jew with the juju. On the street, truth preaching, God is the wave. Bible cracked open, more the scriptures engraved. Give me birth, the stars, quantum thoughts behave. Your heart pumps Christ, inspirations of crave. Diabetes or sugar coated sin. Syrup in the veins, bitter battle begin. Spiritual warfare, the weapons within. Faith in the blood, watch the healing spin. Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew. Around you or through you, from the Jew with the juju. Shindos are the strings, the violin weak. 808 rumble deep, shaking soul through steam. Bebop with shadows, a nocturnal leap in the sound heaven speaks. So in faith to read. You noodle and I'm doodle. Who with the voodoo? Around you or through you? From the Jew with the juju. Electron transport evidence. God is music is resonant. Like tuning forks vibrate. Music cross the tri-state. Why hey? Team carry metal. Aromatic rings never settle. They call it corner tunneling. We call it hustling. Water bring the muscling. Flowing, time and juggling. Yeah. Fix your face or what's up with him? Struggling, play the crib close. Yeah. The Bible is about big blows. The mound is the sound. Wave you a clown. Get down or lay down. Search from a drown in the beginning was the stage you best behave. The most talented performer is the wave. Back to age of mind trap. Follow me. If you wanna get free, we outside. You never did. The block is the square. The cross is the sight. Birth of the light. 3, 4, 5 photons take light. What happened? God rapping. Waves clashing. Sending on business. We fashion. He said we now ATP. Recycle sound and light is made to be the great MC. Skate on me. Make quantum equations. ABC. Your state degree is fake to me. Do you do what you do? This Haitian voodoo. From the Jew with juju. What you knew to, what you knew to, what you knew to. I'm true to. With the voodoo around you. What do you the Jew with the juju? Don't let me spook you. It's crucial. Cock a book shoot you. Have you look cuckoo? Like a gorilla glue. The wave is the juju. The wave is the juju. The wave is the juju. The wave is you. From the Jew with the juju. On the street, truth preaching, God is the way. Bible cracked open, more than scriptures engraved. Yeah. Came at birth, the stars, quantum thoughts behave. Yeah. Your heart pumps Christ, inspirations of crave. Yeah. Diabetes of war, sugar coated sin. Syrup in the veins, bitter battle begins. Spiritual warfare, the weapons within. Faith in the blood, watch the healing spin.
This is why you have to go to Amazon and get the book, Rich Abs, Poor Abs, now.